Before we begin, let me ask you something quietly. Have you ever noticed how the mind can return to the same place again and again? Not because it wants to suffer, but because something there feels unfinished. A moment, a conversation, a connection that once felt alive, and then somehow just stopped. Not resolved, not explained, just left open. And there is something about an open door that the mind does not easily forget. So as you listen to this story, you don't have to try to understand anything all at once. You can simply allow yourself to follow along and notice what begins to shift. There was a place, not in the world, but within it, a quiet corridor lined with doors, not ordinary doors, but ones that seemed to hold something more. Each door carried a feeling. Some were light, some were heavy, some were warm, and others carried a strange, distant echo. And the person walking through this corridor had been there many times before, not intentionally, but in quiet moments when the world softened. They would find themselves here again. Most of the doors were closed, not locked, just complete. Behind them lived memories that had already settled, moments that had found their place. But there was one door at the far end of the corridor that was always slightly open. Not wide, just enough to notice. And no matter how many times they passed it, no matter how much time had gone by, that door remained waiting. At first they avoided it, not out of fear, but out of something quieter, hesitation, because they knew, without needing to think it through, that whatever was behind that door had never been quite finished. And yet, the mind is curious that way, because what is unfinished does not disappear. It lingers, softly, patiently, until one day they stopped right in front of it. The door was the same as always, slightly open, still, unchanged. And for a moment, they simply stood there, not reaching, not moving, just noticing. And then, something inside them asked a question, not loud, not demanding, just present. What am I waiting for? The question didn't rush an answer. It simply stayed. And somehow they reached for the door. And as it opened, there was no dramatic shift, no overwhelming emotion, just a quiet room. Inside, everything felt familiar, not because they had been there physically, but because they had been there in thought so many times. This was the place where the conversation had never ended, where the words that were never spoken still existed, where the meaning had never fully formed. At first, nothing happened, just stillness. And then, the mind began to do what it always does. It started replaying moments, fragments, expressions, silences, trying once again to understand, to solve, to complete something that had never been completed. But this time, something was different. Instead of following the thoughts, they simply watched them, like waves, rising and falling, without needing to chase them. And as they watched, something became clear, not all at once, but gently, The room was not holding the other person. It was holding their experience, their feelings, their interpretations, their hopes. Everything that had been left behind was still there, not because it needed the other person, but because it had never been fully felt. And in that moment, a realization began to form. They had been waiting for someone else to come back and close this door, but the door was never theirs to close. It had always been there, inside, and as that understanding settled, something began to shift. Not in the room, not in the past, but in the way they were standing within it. Instead of searching, they began to feel the sadness that had never been fully allowed, the questions that had never found answers, the quiet disappointment that had never been spoken. All of it rising, not to overwhelm, but to move. And as it moved, something unexpected happened. It softened, not because it was solved, but because it was finally seen, felt, allowed. And the room, which had finally once felt heavy, began to change. The edges softened, the air lightened, not dramatically, but enough to notice. And then something even quieter emerged, a voice, not from outside, but from within. You don't need anything more to complete this. At first the mind questioned it, but what about the answers? And the voice responded gently. Answers do not always create peace. Sometimes acceptance does. And in that moment, something deeper began to settle. Because for the first time, they were no longer trying to change the past. They were allowing it to be what it was. Incomplete, unanswered, unfinished, and still over. And as that truth moved through them, they noticed something quietly profound. The feeling that had once kept the door open was not the lack of answers. It was the resistance to not having them. And as that resistance softened, even just a little, the need for closure began to dissolve. Not forced, not pushed, just naturally. And slowly they turned toward the door, and there was no rush, no urgency, just a quiet knowing. And as they stepped out, they gently closed it. Not because everything was understood, but because everything had been felt. And that was enough. The corridor remained. The door still lined the halls, but something was different now. The space felt lighter, quieter, complete. And as they walked away, there was no need to look back, because the door that had once stayed open no longer needed to be. And somewhere deep inside, something settled into place. A quiet, steady peace. The kind that does not come from answers, but from letting go of the need for them. And as you sit here now, you might begin to notice in your own way, at your own pace, that there may be doors within you that have remained open, not because they cannot be closed, but because they have been waiting for you to gently step inside and feel what is there, and realize you already have everything you need to let them rest. And as that understanding deepens, even just slightly, You may begin to sense that closure was never something outside of you. It has always been something you can create within. And you don't have to do it all at once, just a little at a time, until one day, without effort, without force, you notice the door has quietly closed. And now, as the story begins to settle, you don't need to do anything at all. There's nothing to figure out, nothing to force, nothing to solve. You can simply allow yourself to begin drifting softly, easily, naturally. Perhaps you begin noticing your breath, not changing it, not controlling it, just noticing the way it moves in and the way it moves out. And as you follow that gentle rhythm, you might begin to realize your breath has been there the whole time, steady, quiet, reliable. And something inside you can begin to trust that rhythm just a little more. Breathing in a sense of ease, and breathing out any tension you no longer need to carry. And with each breath, you may begin to feel your body softening, your shoulders loosening, your jaw unclenching, the small muscles around your eyes beginning to relax. And it can happen so naturally, without effort, because your body already knows how to let go. You don't have to teach it. You can simply allow it. And as your body softens, your mind can begin to follow. Thoughts may still be there, and that's okay. You don't need to stop them. You don't need to change them. You can simply notice them, the way you might notice clouds drifting across the sky. Some pass quickly, some linger a little longer, but none of them need your attention right now, because there is something deeper, something quieter that you are beginning to move into. And as you continue breathing, slowly, gently, you might begin to imagine a soft, calming place, not somewhere far away, but somewhere that feels familiar, safe. It might be a quiet room, or an open landscape, or simply a feeling of stillness. And in this space, there is nothing required of you. You don't have to perform, or explain, or understand. You can simply be. And as you rest here, you may begin to notice a sense of weight gently leaving your body. Not all at once, just gradually, layer by layer. Anything you've been holding, anything you've been carrying, can begin to loosen. And if there is any part of you still holding onto something unfinished, you don't need to push it away. You can simply allow it to come into awareness gently, not to relive it, not to analyze it, just to notice it. And as you do, you might begin to sense that you are not inside that experience anymore. You are here, observing. And there is a quiet distance now, a space between you and what once felt so close. In that space, there is something new, a sense of choice. Because from here, you can begin to respond differently. Not by changing the past, but by changing how it rests within you. And as you sit with that, you might begin to imagine something very simple. A gentle warmth beginning somewhere deep inside you. It might begin in your chest or in your stomach or somewhere you can't quite name. And that warmth is not coming from outside. It's something that has always been there. And as you notice it, it begins to grow softly, steadily, spreading throughout your body like a quiet light. And wherever that warmth moves, it begins to soften anything it touches. Tension melts, tightness releases. Even those places that once felt heavy begin to feel lighter. And as that warmth expands, you may begin to sense something deeper. A quiet understanding that you are not missing anything. Nothing has been taken from you that you cannot recreate within yourself. And that sense of completion that you once looked for is already forming right here. And you don't have to rush it, because it happens naturally when you allow yourself to rest, to feel, to be. And as that continues, you may begin to notice that your breath has slowed. Your body feels heavier or lighter, and your mind quieter. And in this quiet, there is space for healing, space for release, space for something new to gently take its place. And you may not even notice exactly when it happens, but somewhere within you, something begins to settle, like water becoming still, like a door closing softly without effort. And as it closes, there is no loss, only peace, only completion. And you can stay here for as long as you like, resting in that feeling, allowing it to deepen, allowing it to become familiar. Because this space is calm. This quiet sense of wholeness is always available to you. And each time you return to it, it becomes easier, more natural, more yours. And for now, you don't need to go anywhere. You can simply remain here, breathing, resting, and allowing everything within you to gently come back into balance.
There was a place, not in the world, but somewhere deep inside, a quiet hall of hidden doors, where silent feelings hide. Some felt light, some felt heavy, some were warm to the touch, others held a distant echo you could feel but not quite touch. And I've been here before, not by choice but somehow. When the noise fades out, I always find it now. There's a door still open at the end of the line, not wide, just enough to stay on my mind. I kept walking past it every single time, but the things unfinished never fall behind. Most doors closed, not locked away, just stories settled in place, moments resting where they belong, nothing left to chase. But that one door never changed, still waiting there for me, not calling out, not pulling hard, just quiet, patiently. I told myself, not yet, didn't ask myself why, but something in me knew there were things inside. There's a door still open at the end of the line, not wide, just enough to stay on my mind. I kept walking past it every single time, but the things unfinished never fall behind. What am I waiting for? The room was quiet, nothing loud, nothing new, just every thought I never let through, moments, fragments, words unsaid, all the things still in my head. But this time I didn't chase, didn't try to rearrange, I just watched them rise and fall like waves that slowly change. It wasn't them inside that space, it was everything I felt, every hope, every meaning, every story I had built. I was waiting all this time for someone else to close, but the door was never theirs, and somehow I finally know there's a door still open, but it's different now. I don't need the answers, I don't need to know how, 'cause the weight I was holding wasn't what I'd lost. It was fighting the silence and the unanswered call. So I felt it all at once, every question, every ache, not to fix it, not to solve, just to finally let it break. And it softened, not complete, not explained, but at peace. I stepped out, turned around, closed the door without a sound. And now the hall feels lighter, quieter somehow. No need to look behind me, there's nothing waiting now. find out they're alone. It's the moment you stop searching and finally make it home. And now the hall feels lighter, quieter, somehow. Feels lighter, quieter somehow. No need to look behind me, there's nothing waiting now. I kept walking past it every single time, but the things unfinished never fall behind. There was a place not in the world, but somewhere deep inside, a quiet hall of hidden doors, where silent feelings hide. Some felt light, some felt heavy, some were warm to the touch. Others held a distant echo you could feel but not quite touch. And I've been here before, not by choice but somehow. When the noise fades out, I always find it now. There's a door still open at the end of the line, not wide, just enough to stay on my mind. I kept walking past it every single time, but the things unfinished and finally make it home. There was a place not in the world, but somewhere deep inside, a quiet hall of hidden doors, where silent feelings hide. Some felt light, some felt heavy, some were warm to the touch. Others held a distant echo.
So here are the key meanings of the story. Number 1, closure is internal, not external. The central truth of the story is this: closure does not come from the other person, it comes from within. The mind believes it needs an explanation, an apology, a final conversation. But the story gently reveals that peace is not created by answers. It's created by acceptance and emotional completion. Number 2, the open door represents unprocessed emotion. The door wasn't open because something was unfinished in reality. It was open because something was unfelt inside. The mind replays to understand. The heart holds on to feel. The story shows that what keeps us stuck in is not the event itself, but the emotions that were never fully allowed to move through. Number 3, the mind seeks resolution, but the body needs release. The character initially tries to analyze, replay, solve, but nothing changes. The shift happens when they stop thinking and start feeling. This reflects a deeper therapeutic truth. Healing doesn't happen through more thinking. It happens through feeling and allowing. Number 4, acceptance is more powerful than understanding. One of the most important meanings: you don't need to understand everything to find peace. The mind believes, if I could just understand, I can let go. But the story shows understanding is optional. Acceptance is essential. Peace comes when you allow the unanswered, the incomplete, the unknown to simply exist. Number 5. You are the one who closes the door. The turning point reveals they were waiting for someone else to come back and finish the story. But the truth is, you are the one who completes your own emotional experiences. This is deeply powerful because it shifts from dependency to self-agency, from waiting to choosing. Number 6. The pain was not the lack of answers, it was a resistance. The subtle but powerful meaning, the suffering wasn't caused by what happened, it was caused by resisting to what happened, needing it to be different, needing it to make sense. But when resistance softens, the emotional charge dissolves. Number 7. Feeling is the bridge to freedom. The story shows that the moment everything shifts is when the character allows sadness, allows disappointment, allows the truth of their experience without fixing it. This reflects a key therapeutic principle. What is fully felt can finally move. Number 8. Closure feels quiet, not dramatic. The ending is intentionally subtle. There is no big breakthrough, emotional explosion, dramatic resolution. Instead, there is softness, stillness, quiet completion. Because real closure often feels like, oh, I'm okay now. Number 9. Letting go is not losing, it's releasing the need. The story reframes letting go. It's not forgetting, dismissing, invalidating. It's simply releasing the need for something that is no longer available. And number 10, wholeness was never broken. At the deepest level, the story communicates nothing was taken from you that you cannot restore within yourself. The connection may have ended, but your ability to feel, love, and be complete remains fully intact. And as the story settles within you, you might begin to notice something quietly different. Not a dramatic shift, not something you have to chase, just a small, steady sense that something inside you has finally exhaled. Because closure was never something you had to wait for. It was something you were always capable of giving yourself. So if this moment, this feeling, this quiet understanding resonated with you, then you are exactly where you're meant to be. And there is so much more waiting for you here. So go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss what your mind and heart are ready to discover next. And if there's a part of your story that is still waiting to be understood, still waiting to gently be completed, you don't have to carry it alone. You can reach out to me at ronashypnoticstories@gmail.com and I'll create a deeply personal hypnotic story designed just for you. Because sometimes the most powerful healing begins the moment you realize your story is still being written, and you are the one who gets to decide how it continues. Until next time, be well.